Hello and welcome to another episode of the Well Played Podcast. I'm your host, Warren Curtis, and today we are talking about where factions is. Microsoft is now fighting the British, and Nintendo wants you to stop cheating in Zelda. I am Warren Curtis, and today I'm joined by...
Hi, I'm Amanda.
Before we get into it, let's talk about what it is that we do on the show. We're going to bring you the news and rumors of the week from around the gaming industry. And we're going to bring them all, put them here, provide some commentary and context into why these things actually matter and what they mean. And then you're going to get some opinions and thoughts on all these different subjects for both of us, as well as some discussions about the games that we've been playing and maybe the games that are coming out, and maybe some review kind of things. We'll also wrap it up with the discussions about what we have been playing. Sometimes we play quite a bit together, so we'll be talking about that kind of thing. Further, you can find us all on YouTube, where all of our content will be archived under Amaran Studios. You can also find us on Twitter at Amaran Studios. That is AMARREN Studios. You can subscribe to the audio version of the show wherever you get your pods. We are on Apple Pods. We are on Amazon. We are on Spotify. We are on iHeartRadio. If it's a pod service, you can find us on there. Just search the Well Played Podcast. Be sure to follow, like, subscribe, comment. You can find us on Facebook as well. With that said, let's start off with the news.
Okay.
The PlayStation Showcase happened. We did a little pre-show before the showcase to discuss about what that was about and what that really meant, what we kind of predicted what was going to happen. So there were some things we were on about, some things we were off, and there's some things that we obviously figured out some more explanations on, which was interesting. To start that off, Haven opened up the show with a CG trailer for their new IP, Fair Games, $, which is a heist cooperative live service game. Kind of gave me Payday vibes, but it's very live servicey. Any thoughts on that one?
I just thought it had a very techno character.
Yeah, kind of like a hero-driven thing where you're. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, it definitely had those vibes. I felt like gadgets were maybe kind of important with it.
Yeah.
There was a gadget aspect for sure. And it looks like it's squad based. I don't know if you sign up for a team or, you're just match made. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like.
Do you believe it would be a live one that you have to be in on the beginning, or be something you could jump into down the road as well?
That's all in how they got to implement it. And I think in the perfect world, a live service game is something where you don't feel like you've missed out on if you missed the boat, because live service games are very busy games. Right, so I think at Fortnite, I could jump in at Fortnite now and not feel like I've really missed anything of importance, because the plot, it matters-ish, but it's not really why you're playing the game.
Yeah.
Destiny 2, on the other hand, is a game that I feel I've missed the boat on because I didn't start playing it when it came out, and we're umpteen expansions into it now, and I don't know where to begin with it, and I think the plot is important to it.
So we'll have to wait and see with this one.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see about this one. I think this more so just has that heist focus. Maybe there's a loose plot to it. We'll see. But I think there's some promise to it. It is part of Jim Ryan's 10 live service game promise. So we'll see what that how that turns out for them. Following up after that, Bungie showed off Marathon is coming back. So Marathon being their big IP before Halo.
Yeah.
It was locked on to I believe it was on the Apple II exclusively at the time. So us PC players and us console players really haven't had a chance to get familiar with that. And now, because of where it is, it's not something you can really find archives of easily, I would think. And they're bringing it back in a way that kind of looks very interesting. It definitely looks like it's a live service PvP kind of game, extraction-based shooter, which is a big thing right now. And Bungie's, I think, the studio to pull something like that off. What do you think?
I think that I'm mostly no Bungie for Halo, playing through Halo. So I think from Halo itself that Bungie would be a good studio to do something along these lines.
Yeah, they definitely have the pedigree and I think the experience behind it. Having Sony's wallet behind them probably helps quite a bit.
Yeah. Do you think it's still going to be heavily time-based?
I think it's, an extraction game you have to get out kind of most of the time in a certain period of time.
Yeah.
Right? So, that's what dictates what a match is. So if you fail to get out in a certain period of time, the other team wins.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be a time limit thing to it. The trailer was, I think, super cool. It was
Yes.
super interesting.
Yeah. Colorful.
Yeah,
Lots of futuristic. Yeah.
yeah, good music to it. And
Yeah.
then at the end, and it pulled out, and we saw like the planet and kind of everything going on there. And I know they've thrown Easter eggs in the first three Halo games. I know they don't have anything to do with Halo anymore, but I do like how they're still kind of staying true to that original image, that
Yeah.
original concept, which is very neat. And then they also threw the trailer in for Destiny 2,
Yeah.
the final shape. Um, the only thing that really meant to me as someone who doesn't play Destiny 2 is it means that Nathan Fillion's back as Cade 6. And I know,
Which a lot of people seem to be very happy for.
yeah, everybody
so.
seems to be
Yeah.
happy about Nathan Fillion being back. He's one of those characters that you pick up his
Love him.
voice, and yeah, and you pick up on him right away. And he's got a great relationship with Bungie, having been playing as Marines in various Halo games,
Yep.
and then he was one of the main characters in Halo 3 ODST,
Yeah. ODST.
along with a lot of the Firefly cast. So I think that's how this all transpired. And I'm excited for the people that are excited for this.
Yep.
As I say, I desperately want to get into Destiny 2, but I don't think it's something I'm going to be able to do just because of the amount of time and the amount of things that I've missed. Any other thoughts on Destiny 2? I know.
Unfortunately, I'm not very familiar with Destiny in the same aspect as you, and it seems like a very big game to jump into now with everything else that you want to fit in or try. So I may be wrong there and could be corrected if it's something that you could still maybe get in now and catch up. But as of right now, I don't know much about it.
Yeah, yeah. That's exactly the problem with me right there. And it's an older game. It was, what, 2017, I think it came out. So, it's 6 years old now, at least. So missing that kind of boat is quite a big thing. And it's been a generation already, right? It came out on the PS4,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So now we're here on the PS5 generation, and it's missed. I think
Us.
it's missed us and a lot of audience. At that time we were having kids and things were getting
Yeah.
busy, and now we're at a point where things are settling down. And, hey, we could maybe try to get into a game like that, but it's too
Is
much.
it too big? Yeah.
I think it's too much. But and then the other first party game that was showed off that we didn't know about was Firewalk's Studios teaser for Concord. Now, Firewalk is a studio that was formed, I believe, in 2018 by Harold Ryan, who used to be the CEO of Bungie when Bungie was independent. And anyways, and he took his package, I guess, from being acquired from Microsoft, and got out and went over to form Firewalk Studios. He's got some Call of Duty veterans there. He's got some Bungie veterans and 343 veterans there, and some other people.
A lot of mixed talent.
Yeah, a lot of mixed talent, and we've got a trailer, a small teaser of Concord, which looks to be a space-based shooter.
Yes,
We know it's a
yeah.
first-person shooter. We know it's live service, and it's space-based. We think
Well, it was
there's
a very small teaser, so
very
we don't
small
know much
teaser.
yet.
You're in a spaceship, and there's plants, I think, and or something like that in there.
Yeah,
and
it looks like there may have been some damage in the ship. Like there's an allude with the handprint on the
yeah, so there's a
control
little bit,
panel there. So yeah,
right? So excited for that. I can't remember when they said that one was coming. I think it was coming 2024. So I think there's a lot of potential there. And again, it's another live service game. It's part of this Jim Ryan package, so it's interesting. Any other thoughts about Firewalk before we move
No,
off?
no.
Concord. I gotta call it by its name now that it has a name. All right. And then Spider-Man 2. We got an extended look. That's what closed out the show. That was the one more thing. Spider-Man 2, we know, comes out this fall. It was leaked that it might be the last week of September. I don't know if that's still holding true or not, but that was the original leak. And in it, we met Kraven, the Hunter, who is obviously after Spider-Man, or more accurately, I think the Venom, and the other baddies that happen to inhabit New
and
York.
he's after the thrill of the hunt for something worthy of
Yeah.
his time. It seems, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not familiar much with Kraven from the comic books. That was a later comic book for me, but I have heard stories about that kind of arc, and I think it's interesting. And we have Miles Morales joining teams with Peter Parker.
Yeah, I think it's a nice twist seeing playing Miles and then Venom on the Peter Parker side. I like that.
I also like that we were picking up different boroughs of New York, a little bit more detailed there. So the map seems bigger. We're not recycling the same map from the previous game, so there's a little bit more. They have said that we are going to explore more areas. I think there's more interior stuff happening too, which is interesting too.
Seems like a whole full character list too in this game from all the different Spider-Mans.
Yeah, and the dialogue's on point so far from what we've seen. I know there was some criticism online about like the draw distance on the buildings and things like that, popping in and out during the trailer. I think that is probably more so just the fact that this was an early build. A lot of these assets for trailers, especially something as involved as this was a 10-minute long look at the game. So that would have been made and prepped quite a long time ago. And at this stage of game development, things move very fast. And we go from not having draw distance and not even having characters mapped properly to, no costumes
it all falling into place,
to all those assets getting done and very quickly and everything popping in. So this is very much what the industry would call crunch time for the game. Now we hope nobody's crunching over at Insomniac and nobody's sleeping under desks and working 80-hour weeks. But this is that time where everything does come together, and it is very important. We're a couple months out. The game, if it it's going to be available on disc. It's a PS5 exclusive, so the game is going to be going on gold, which means putting it on the disc. Probably, if it's coming out end of September, probably mid-August. So we have like 6 weeks of game development before definitely they got to do that. And then they're going to go heavily for the day one patch and get all those bugs fixed and things like that they missed because they don't have 10 million people playing the game day one, right? Because we're all beta testers when it comes to that kind of thing, right? And which that kind of thing is understandable. So I'm not worried about things like textures popping and things like that. Insomniac are wizards, and they will do this.
True, very true.
In that short period of time, at the end of the PS4 generation, they released Spider-Man Remastered, Spider-Man Miles Morales. Then they switched gears and released Ratchet and Clank, A Crack in Time, in the opening months of the PS5 generation. So I think that is absolutely cool that they're doing that. And now they're making Spider-Man 2, they're making Wolverine, and I'm assuming the Ratchet team is on to something else. 3 teams under that house. What a great get for Sony to have that studio, I think. I think they are the studio that's proving their value right now. Any other thoughts about Spider-Man?
No, I think can't wait to play it though.
Yeah, it looks super fun. We'll have to paper rock scissors who gets to play that one first. Alrighty, so out of all that, we were talking about a lot of studios in the last episode that kind of belong there, or that we suspected belong there. We kind of suspected Bend would show up with something. They've been absent for quite some time since Days Gone. We kind of suspected that maybe we would see Cory Barlog's game. He was the director of God of War 2018. He did not direct Ragnarok, but he was a consultant on it. It's been said numerous times, Alana Pierce, who is one of the writers at Santa Monica Studio, has said on her show a couple times that they are working on multiple projects, and that's really all as far as she can go with it. So she said she, did a little bit of writing on Ragnarok, but then she moved over to another project because she came on board late. I think that's interesting to hear that kind of thing, that Santa Monica Studios got a different project, and it's coming from Cory Barlog, and it's more than likely not going to be a God of War project, so it's going to be interesting to see what that is.
Yeah, what they do.
And notably, it's absent. It's been probably in development for 4 years or so, but it is what it is. And I think the big one that's absent that we all know is coming, or all knew it was coming, was The Last of Us Factions, which is the multiplayer expansion that was supposed to come out with The Last of Us at the beginning of the generation, like 3 years ago. It wasn't there. It should have been there. I believe.
We thought it would be there.
I believe from everything that we've seen and everything that everybody said that it should have been there because it's supposed to come out this holiday. What we do know about the project is it started off as just a multiplayer component of The Last of Us. And they're like, we got to hold that because we want to ship the game. We've got to get the game out at time. This isn't quite ready. We're going to polish it. And then that turned into, we're going to maybe turn it into something a little bit more special than that. And I think over the line, it evolved into one of these live service games. And it didn't quite cut the mustard. It didn't make the pedigree that Sony is really expecting of now. And a little bit of news from that is comes from Jason Schreier at Bloomberg. Um, According to Jason Schreier at Bloomberg, Bungie is taking a look at all live service games at PlayStation, including The Last of Us multiplayer, known as Factions, and raised serious concerns about the game's longevity, which has Naughty Dog reassessing its viability and quality. He reports that Naughty Dog has significantly scaled down resources on the project as it reassesses the game, and other insiders as well have reported that those that have been removed from the project have transitioned over to other projects at Naughty Dog, including a new IP, reportedly.
Do you think there's any chance that they may scrap that project altogether, or do you think we'll eventually see something out of them for this?
Yeah, see, it's been in development for some time, and it's quite a lot of time and resources and money to draw.
Exactly.
But if they could roll maybe what they've learned into something else,
Expand it into their next IP.
yeah, expand it into their next thing, or we get a light version of this as a free to play, it might be interesting. I want to read the statement from Naughty Dog that they released, I believe, as a kind of a reply of sorts to Jason Schreier. They said, "The Last of Us fans, we know many of you have been looking forward to hearing more about The Last of Us multiplayer game. We are incredibly proud of the job our studio has done thus far, and as development has continued, we realized what is best for the game is to give it more time. Our team will continue to work on the project, as well as there are other games in development, including a brand new single-player experience. We look forward to sharing more soon. We're grateful to our fantastic community for your support. Thank you for your passion for our games. It continues to drive us." Um, and I think there's some interesting things here. Bungie is obviously looking at the recipe of what makes a good live service game. I think they're a good consultant for that. The thing I was kind of concerned with from the get-go with this is, what does a Last of Us live service game really look like? Because live service games, as we all know, you have costumes, you have skins and character loads, right? So if you want to play Fortnite, which is the live service game to end all live service games, and you want to play as John Wick or Ariana Grande, you can do that, right? And how do you sell that for The Last of Us? How does that market over, right? And as far as outfits go, like, what are you going to do? Get more dirtier jeans to wear, or this ripped flannel shirt?
Post-apocalypse, you're not supposed to.
Right.
I guess you could get different characters from other genres and maybe play
do a Walking Dead crossover or something. I think there's maybe
like
limited aspects where that would work.
Yeah.
Or maybe instead of playing as Joel from The Last of Us, that we know him from the video game, maybe you get a Pedro Pascal skin or something like that.
True. Maybe it'll open it up and you can play as one of the zombie characters or something as well. You don't have to play on the good side all the time.
Yeah, we're not supposed to say the Z word when it comes to Last of Us. It's infected, right? Is what they call it. Infected.
Yes.
Easy mistake. I don't think that recipe really fits well with The Last of Us in the live service, but I think they felt in order to get the funding from Sony to do this, they felt maybe they needed to justify it as such. I'm just spitballing. It seems to me that's what it is, because you kind of can read between the lines of what's going on here. And, who knows? Maybe it does come out as something, maybe it gets tacked on to something else. But that's a long time to have one of your most premier studios tied up onto making basically nothing.
Something we haven't seen.
Right. So it'll be interesting. I'm excited to hear. They said they're working on a brand new single player experience that they're looking forward to sharing more soon. So I'm excited to see what that is. This is the studio that brought us Uncharted. It's the studio that brought us The Last of Us. I love both of those game series so much. Uncharted being one of my favorite video game series of all time. The Last of Us is right there. Zelda's right there. Like, it's like these things I just hold up on a pedestal. But narrative-driven first-player games, you look at Naughty Dog. They are the recipe builders. They share the building with Sony's engine development team, right? So, they have access to these tools and systems a lot earlier than a lot of the other studios within Sony. So they can come up with some really cool stuff. And then they have these amazing writers and these amazing people behind the scenes making the game, and you just can't shake that. So I really want to see what's coming from them. Does Sony really need more games as a service? Do they need that to survive, or can they survive off these tentpole single player experiences that we've grown to know them for?
I think they need to do something into the live service to keep competitive, just because Microsoft does have such uh, dominance there.
Sure, okay,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
but I don't know what that looks like for Sony, because they really haven't laid out what their like future for their gaming looks like. They keep toying in the VR, and then the PlayStation Plus, like they revamped that. So we haven't seen like a clear view of what PlayStation looks like in the future right now.
yeah, and that's a good point. They haven't really made a valid effort, I feel, into the cloud gaming space.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there's a lot of aspects to this that we need to consider. And with games as a service, you know, yes, they're profitable. They're hugely profitable if you can make one land. But and Jim Ryan's looking for his Fortnite, his Apex Legends, his
Yes.
Destiny 2. He owns Destiny 2 now, but it's still multi-platform,
Yeah.
right? And he's looking at recreating that lightning in a bottle somewhere else. And one of these studios could be the answer. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But I think if you have 10 games in development, one of them hits, it pays for the rest of them. So it is worth the dice roll, I think, at least to try.
Yeah.
Um, do you think Sony's delayed any other games because Bungie has gone in and taken a look? There were,
Let them see, kind of come in and review and
yeah,
see what they think on
we,
certain
we knew
things.
when Sony bought Bungie. They said they
Yeah.
were looking at their experience for live service games, and Bungie said we're looking for their experience at being able to monetize intellectual property.
Right.
Right. So we know we're looking down the barrel of a Destiny TV show or something down the road. But what does this mean for the live service side of Sony? Are we delaying other games? Are we having other games delayed because of this?
Would they delay something just to make sure that it's like the one to hit? Maybe if they've got something that they're on the, like they're pretty sure about, but then they want that extra.
Yeah, I think they would delay something, especially if it hasn't been publicly announced.
Yeah.
I think the potential for Sony to delay something internally so they can polish it and make it
Yeah.
works really good. Especially live service games are really good to kind of go, here's the trailer of what it is, you can play it now.
Yes.
Um,
It drops today.
yeah, do these shadow drops with live service games because you don't necessarily need to build up the hype for a long period of time with them. You just need to go, hey, here's something new, go play it.
And it's definitely possible that Sony's got some other things maybe delayed in announcing. Maybe that's also why the show wasn't as long or as big, because of maybe some of their pet projects are still behind the curtain for now.
Right, and I did want to talk a bit about that too because Sony hasn't had a showcase in 18 months or so. We've had a couple of the smaller direct style shows that they've done, but this is their big showcase. This is what we would call their E3 show, which E3 is dead, but
Yeah.
their E3 show, and we're not really getting that vibe off of it. It's a bunch of known quantities from their first party studios mostly, and then a bunch of partner studios, a significant amount of which these partner studios that showed up with third party games, a lot of them are landing on competitive systems like
Yeah.
the Xbox or the Switch, and even the ones that aren't, like Marathon, that's multi-platform, right? That's a Sony first-party game, and that's going to Xbox on day one. That's going to PC on day one. Haven, I believe they announced it was either Haven or Firewalk. I couldn't remember, but one of these two new studios, they announced their game as coming to computer day one, coming to PC. So they had this kind of a weaker showing of things that are what makes Sony special. And in addition to that, Tom Henderson over at Insider Gaming was saying before the show that he saw quite a lot of exciting things, and then after the show he said, "I didn't see everything that I've saw
So
there."
there's something else.
Right. So he's saying, or he's claiming that he's seen other things before the show aired that was supposed to be part of the show and were somehow not part of it. Now it could be just, oh wait, the game's hit a snag, so we got to hit pause on announcing it, or it could be Sony's stockpiling things for down the road. And my inkling is Tom Anderson's notoriously correct at these things. He has very good access at Sony. I think just based off of all the things that we talked about last week that could be there or should be there, I think that there is something maybe planned, maybe a smaller direct after Spider-Man launches to go, hey, here's what's next. here's the big game for this year. Here's what's coming next. And of course they will show up at the Game Awards like they seem to do every year, and probably have some good announcements in December. But that's 6 months away, so 8 months away. Jeez, wow. Anyways, so it's quite a bit of ways to that event. So maybe they have something planned for after Spider-Man. Maybe we do get a couple trickles at Keighley's Summer Game Fest coming up in a couple weeks. So you never know with that. Do you think it makes sense that they would do another show later this year?
I think maybe they would, especially with this one being a little bit shorter, and with the report that there's more out there that people have seen that we have not seen yet. I think it's very possible maybe they're trying to split the hype, get people more hyped up closer to the holiday season for something, or maybe re-hyped for certain things closer to the holiday season. So I think it's very possible that we'll see something else again, like later this year.
Yeah, I think that adds up. The other thing noticeably absent from that was a release date, a firm release date for Spider-Man 2.
Yes.
And as I said earlier, it was reported that it was going to be the last week of September. They haven't said for sure. They just said coming fall 2023.
Yeah.
September still being summer, but that's an arguable point. They could be just having that little issue of narrowing down exactly what day they want to release it. They probably want to get it out of the way of things like Starfield, the new Call of Duty expansion.
Yeah, they're trying to pick that sweet spot right now.
They want to get that spot that is just for this game, and maybe that's why they haven't firmed that up, and that's why they haven't firmed up what they're doing after. It could all add up to that. Other things that were announced at the show, there was some hardware announced. The new Q Lite, which is, again, it was first reported by Tom Henderson over at Insider Gaming. And it's a handheld that is basically, if you cut a DualSense controller in half and put a Nintendo Switch in the middle and then put the controllers there, right? So you have your 8-inch tablet screen.
Yeah.
Right? I'm sure it's OLED or something like that. Could be a QLED. That would explain the code. And then the controller on either side of it. Now, the thing about this is it's a streaming handheld. It is not a Switch. It is not a Steam Deck. It will only stream via remote play from your PS5 over your local Wi-Fi. So you're not going down to your friend's place with this. You're not hopping on the bus with this. You're not playing it at work. Well, unless you're dragging your PS5 and a router.
It's not a travel solution for gaming.
No, it isn't. It is kind of a half step. Now, that being said, it's called the Q Lite.
So there could be
a Q Heavy. There could be a Q something else coming down. Maybe that corresponds with the PS5 refresh that's rumored for next year. So we'll see what it looks like. A little disappointed that it isn't a standalone handheld, because I think Sony's missing out. They haven't had a Vita or a PSP for quite some time, and I think they're missing out on that market. And Microsoft with that new Asus, and and Nintendo obviously with the Switch, who's still dominating the market
by far now. Yes,
right. They are on track to sell over 140 million units of the Nintendo Switch and beat the PS2 for the best-selling video game console of all time. And I think they will do that in this financial year. So that's really impressive out of them, and I can't see why Sony isn't looking at this money that's on the table.
I know I'm not in a rush to go buy that or have that. Like, I don't really feel it's going to add anything to our gaming experience right now.
I think in certain households it would make sense for sure. You got to decide whether it makes sense to you. I could see, from a practical standpoint.
If you have one TV to share.
One TV to share. You have a partner or kids or somebody that's occupying that TV. You can just grab your PS5 Q Lite.
Yeah, there's a convenience there.
Right? You can go hide out in your bedroom and play PS5 Q Lite or whatever it is you want to do there.
Yeah.
But I think that's price point dependent, right? If this thing is $500, nobody's paying for it. And for clarity, we're Canadians, so we're talking funny money. So $500 Canadian, $350 American would be there. I think that's way too high. I think for American, this needs to retail from $150 to $200 to make sense. So that'd be $250 to $300 for us, roughly, for retail. If it was $250, I am strongly considering this.
Okay.
If it's $400, I am not considering this.
Yep, I get your point.
I will wait for Q Heavy or get one of these PS5 Slims that might be coming out to be that solution for the second screen kind of thing if you need that. Yeah, I don't really necessarily see the point in that with it.
No, not for ourselves here.
No, not for ourselves here. You have to decide if it makes sense to you. And again, it's the money.
Mm-hmm.
There are obviously always those PlayStation guys that will buy anything that says PlayStation on it. And I think the next thing that was announced is definitely for them. It's the PS5 earbuds, the wireless earbuds. I really don't see the need for those. I guess some people enjoy earbuds better than over-the-ear headphones. I have the set of the PS5 headphones. The 3D audio on them is amazing. They're comfy. There's no boom on it, unlike this thing. It's a really nice set of headphones, and the battery life is pretty reasonable on them. The quality it's Sony. It's very good quality. I don't see why I need to have earbuds instead.
Just a personal preference thing. I think it'll come down to giving options to consumers.
Yeah. And again, you have to decide whether you want it or not. Yeah. It feels to me like Sony's consumer electronics division is going, hey, we have these really cool headphones, and why don't we, instead of them being black with the white Sony logo, we make them white with the blue PS5 logo, and we'll sell them to you guys.
That happens.
The guys over at PlayStation are going, hey, sounds good, let's do it, ship it. So it could be something like that. A little disappointed, though, that we didn't get any more hardware-related announcements. I don't really care about a PS5 Slim or Pro or anything like that. That doesn't really tickle my fancy quite yet. But I would like to see, they just launched this Edge controller, right? It's a competitor to the Xbox Elite, or it's not really a competitor. I guess it's the twin to the Xbox Elite, the cousin. So it's a premium controller with interchangeable sticks and all that fun stuff, but you can still only get it in white.
Yeah, there's nothing customizable yet, like in Xbox, where you can pick all your colors and make your dream controller. And it'd be nice to see PlayStation answer that with.
Yeah, and this is something that we buy and we invest in for our 7-8 years, however long the generation is. Yeah. And it'd be nice to have that controller be personally yours. And I know you can do that with aftermarkets. Yeah. And there's skins you can get or what have you, but you're not getting the Sony thing.
Yeah.
Right? And, it'd be nice to have the Sony PlayStation Edge controller with the Sony PlayStation color selection that they have, because they have some really cool colors. Maybe do some customization there. Things like that.
Get your name on it.
Yeah, put your PlayStation ID on there or something like that. I think that would be really cool, and it's disappointing that they're not really part of that experience yet. They're also a couple years behind on releasing such a controller, I think. That being said, it still has all the DualSense feedback things, right? So it has the haptics, it has all that stuff. So it is a more advanced controller than what we would see with the Elite, even with the Elite Series 2, but it'd be nice to have more color combinations, more personalization.
Yeah, wish list stuff.
Yeah, and charge a premium for it, because as I said, there's these PlayStation fanboys that will buy anything that says PlayStation. And those of us that are old enough to remember the PS3 had the PlayStation TV, right? And everybody went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs over it because it was 3D and it was like $500, but it was this big. It was like I think it was a 32-inch, I want to say, TV.
Yeah, I think it was about that size.
Right, and it was 3D. So the one thing that was cool about that TV, though, is we could play split screen 3D with the glasses on. Now, that's why I'm not a big fan of 3D, is because I wear glasses. Yeah. But if I had my glasses on, you had your glasses on, it's not actually split screen anymore.
We were seeing our own screen.
Every other frame is my frame, and the odd ones are your frame. So that would be really cool to do. Yeah. And they kind of dropped the ball on that technology, but here we are. And the other thing that I think they really missed out on, because they've been talking about it, they were talking about it this week before the show, was the Access controller. They finally gave it a name. It was Project Leonardo. It was it's the controller for accessibility, so you can plug in all your peripherals to based off of your disability into this. You can custom map every button and every function. It's very similar to the Xbox accessibility controller that they've had for several years now, but it's the PlayStation version. And we don't have a price. We don't have a release date on that.
We haven't heard much.
We haven't heard much about it. They've just finally said it. Here's the name. It's the Access controller. Right? That's it.
Where's
and
our access?
and exactly, and I think in this day and age, especially with the amount of effort Sony puts into their first party games with accessibility, with color blindness correction and narration and things like that they do, and they do a phenomenal job with that. Not having this controller out, I think is it's time. It needs to be out. It just needs. Don't wait for holidays. Don't wait for a thing to announce it. Just put a price tag on it. Put it on the shelf as soon as you can.
Yeah, get it on the market.
Right. In a perfect world, I think Sony should have just backed up and said, "Hey, guess what? We're going to support this Xbox thing because this adaptive controller from Xbox is really good.
Yeah.
And we should just maybe support that until we get our own thing." But I don't think they're talking.
Who's got a wish list now? That's not gonna happen.
Exactly. They're still throwing things over the fence at each other.
Yeah.
So, but as it is, it is. As far as anything else goes, I think maybe just a small update on what the other games were that were announced at the show. So, not really going in any particular order here. We're going to skip over the games that we already talked about. So Helldivers 2, I thought was notable. It had a very kind of sarcastic, punchy trailer.
I got a Starship Troopers vibe from that game, very much.
Yeah, very much a Starship Troopers style kind of humor to it. It's a third-person shooter. It seems to be what everybody wants that loves Helldivers. I missed the boat on Helldivers 1. I didn't even know this game existed for some reason. So I'm going to probably go download that and check that out and see what that's like. Ghost Runner 2 is it's a very mobility based game by the looks of it.
Yeah, it seems like it's very speed based. Fast action, a lot of fast moving parts, colors, lights like that. It was a very intense trailer.
Yeah, it was a very intense trailer. It actually is very similar to the Marathon trailer in multiple ways.
Yeah.
I have checked briefly. I've checked out Ghost Runner 1, but I never really got into it or anything. I just kind of checked it and was like, okay, that was neat. But then something else needed hard drive space on the game on the console. So
the age-old problem.
Yeah, so she's like, well, you know what, that can wait for another day. We're going to get this other game going that I've been waiting for, and I never went back to it. But there's more reasons for me to go back to it now.
Yeah.
Phantom Blade Zero or Phantom Blade Not. I'm not quite sure because they have the zero with the slice through it, and I think that might be intentional. But it's it was samurai
fight. First
person, definitely. Very story driven thing. From the people that I've talked to that are familiar with the Phantom Blade series, it looks interesting to them. And I've had a few people tell me that the Phantom Blade series isn't quite something for me, so I think I'm going to leave it at that with the series. So, Foam Stars, which is Square Enix's answer to Splatoon, very obviously cartoony. Let's shoot bubbles at each other.
Just goofy fun.
It looks like it might be a fun party game. Get a few people online and play it, but again, it's Square Enix, so who knows?
You gotta try it and see.
Gotta try it and see what it is. Square Enix has obviously been touch and go with some of their quality levels lately, and I kind of have trouble going, why would I want to play a Splatoon clone when I could just play Splatoon? So it'd be kind of interesting. Plucky Squire. This is from Devolver Digital is publishing it.
Cute storybook kind of looking game.
Yeah, it kind of gave me some Little Big Planet vibes, maybe a little bit of what was that game that you and I played a lot of? It Takes Two.
Yes, It Takes Two.
Yeah. It kind of gave me vibes of that, little person, big world kind of thing going on. Very, very artsy, very kind of fun. You were actually looking forward very much to an indie game from the show, so that indie game that had that special zip, I think this one is what struck.
Yeah, that was on my wish list when we were hoping to see something revealed. What was our wish list? I wanted something cutesy like that, kind of maybe to try to play.
Teardown has got a console release coming up. It's coming both to the PlayStation and the Xbox, but they did a PS5 trailer there for it. This is a game I keep on meaning to check out on Steam. And every time I load up Steam, I'm browsing through and I'm like, oh, there it is. And then something else gets my attention and away I go. And then I wind up it's kind of like browsing Netflix. You look at enough things and you're just like, ah, I'll play this instead. And I've never picked it up, but it's definitely something that
oh yeah,
I wrote on my notes, destruction me likey. So
you did, yes, that is exactly what your notes say.
so I think it's something that I would be interested in. It kind of has almost like a heist vibe to it, where you got to go and destroy something for some reason. You're given missions. I'm not quite sure the background of it, and then you got to blow stuff up. So that seems really cool. When I was watching the trailer, I had vibes a little bit of a game called Stuntman that was on the PS2.
Yeah, I remember.
And the objective of Stuntman is you had to run a course for a movie set, right? So you were shooting a movie scene and you had to drive the car around and cause certain chaos. You had to hit that barrel in such a way. You had to do this in such a way. And eventually it tied all together to this greater thing. And I think this teardown kind of gives me those vibes. It's kind of fun. Yeah. And then the one that everybody knew was going to be there, but nobody said it was going to be there, except for, well, I was saying it was going to be there. There's a couple podcasts that said it was going to be there for sure, but there's a lot of people that just said, oh, that's fake because it's Konami. Metal Gear Solid 3 remake. And thank you to Jez Corden for that lead, because he definitely nailed it there.
And what a trailer for
such a good trailer. Because at first I'm looking at this, I'm like, okay, this bird took this thing through this fence, and I hear gunfire, and I was just getting Jurassic Park vibes at first.
Something,
right, and then it gets closer, and then you just see Snake's face, and I was like, oh, that's awesome, right?
It was a good trailer.
And Metal Gear Solid 3 being, I think, the best of the Metal Gear games, is, especially out of the Solid series, you know, we're talking the Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, and 3. It was on the PS2. There was a big origin story involved in this. It did a lot narratively, and systems-wise, there were so many systems with it. It was called Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater because you could eat a snake, right? And it was, you know, you could eat the snake, it give you nutrients. You needed nutrients and energy to survive because you're stuck out in the wilderness. But on the other end of the spectrum, these snakes carried diseases, and they could, those diseases would cause sicknesses. So you had to counteract that with other things, and the systems were just insane. And the studio that's remaking this game is apparently they're keeping all the systems intact entirely. They're not touching the code for that whatsoever. They're just plopping it into a new engine or some new tech and shining it up, making new graphics, giving us, you know, things like ray tracing and stuff like that. They haven't confirmed ray tracing, but it's a game that takes place. It's in the package now, right? It's in the jungle. A lot of it's at night. Ray tracing, I think, is very important for those kind of things to set that scene. It's a very cinematic game. And reportedly, the original voice cast is being utilized. They haven't said they're returning, so I'm not sure if that means they're using the original voice recordings, the original masters,
or if they're going to redo it.
Or if they're going to redo it and bring it back. But either way, David Hayter as Solid Snake, fellow Canadian, Wolverine. He was the man. He was Wolverine in the 1990s X-Men cartoons. He's got that voice to him, and you know, you got Otacon, you got the whole thing.
Yeah, it's one of those voices that you remember. Yeah. One of the characters that have always stand out. Yeah,
he's actually in another game that was part of the showcase, one of the VR games. He does the voiceover work for it too. So that was kind of neat. It was that game is called Synapse. If you are interested in that, we're not going to really go deep into that because it was kind of quick hits. But Synapse looked interesting for a VR game, to say the least. And then tied with this Metal Gear Solid 3 remake, we also got confirmed that they're doing Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, and 3. So we're getting Metal Gear Solid 3 twice.
Yep.
In the form of the Master Collection, which was a remastered collection. I think it came out in 2011. They did remasters of all the original ones, and made them playable in modern systems. And it sounds like they're just releasing them again, but it says Master Collection Volume 1. So I think we're going to get Metal Gear Solid 4 and 5 finally out of that trap of being stuck on the PS3 and back out into the modern generation. Because if you're labeling it as Volume 1, there's a Volume 2.
Yeah.
It's the same logic that I applied at the Q Lite. If there's a Q Lite, there's a Q not Lite. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see new generations, including yourself, experience Metal Gear.
Yeah, I haven't played Metal Gear, so that is one that is on my wish list to get played. So.
Yeah, you know, Hideo Kojima at his best. In my opinion, I wasn't a fan of Death Stranding, but I absolutely loved Metal Gear Solid 3 and 2. I think he got a little nuts with when he did 2, but um, cinematically he got nuts. I think it had something like 18 hours of cinematics in that game, but it was still very, very good. And 3 was just, I couldn't stop playing it, and it was such a good time. After that, they did Alan Wake 2. Yeah. So the return of Alan Wake 2 from Remedy. Epic Games is publishing this. It is, again, it's multi-plat.
Cop horror mystery game.
Yeah, it is your Alan Wake. He's a writer, and he's stuck in this town, and all these things going on. Alan Wake was a very good survival horror game. You had your camera, or sorry, not your camera, your flashlight, and that's what dictated what you could see. That was really your weapon in many ways. And to finally see Remedy, who's a very busy studio right now with a lot of work happening, coming back to the Alan Wake franchise and doing Alan Wake 2 and releasing that trailer. Oh, it was so good.
Yeah.
It gave me tingles down the back when he was talking about what was happening in the village. One thing of note with that is the publisher has confirmed that they will not be doing a physical release, so no disc version for Alan Wake 2. Digital only, which is surprising to me for two reasons. One, I think it's a little too late to drop, or too early, sorry, to drop the digital only for like a AAA game.
Yes.
Right? You start doing digital only on AAA, it's a little weird because you're missing out on this market in Europe that is notoriously physical.
Yes. Right,
especially Eastern Europe, they're very notoriously physical only because you can hand it over to other people. You can trade them, right? And games that there was games, I can't think of the exact title now, but when I was going over the sales data in last month in Great Britain, and I want to say it was a FIFA game, but I'm not 100% sure. It sold 90% digital in Great Britain. That exact same game in Germany sold 90% physical. Yeah. And I went through it twice to check to see if it was a typo, and it wasn't a typo, so that was the confirmed data. And it was either last month or the month before, I can't remember now. But they're kind of negating that big part of the market that wants these physical games. And Alan Wake 2 being survival horror, kind of also survival horror also does much better in Eastern Europe than it does in a lot of the other places per capita. So it's a little weird that they're abandoning that market specifically, but maybe we'll see. Maybe they will do a limited run version. Maybe Limited Run Games does a limited run version. We will see.
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed Mirage.
Back to classic.
It's
looking.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is part of that. Last year, Ubisoft did a Ubisoft Forward, and they announced 85,000 different Assassin's Creed games. Not exactly that many, but it felt like it was just one after the other Assassin's Creed games. And they're like, oh yeah, we have a Rabbids game coming in with Mario. Yeah, you might want to play that.
Yeah, we're back to heavy emphasis on the stealth.
Yeah.
We're back into the medieval era.
Yeah, we're back into, it looks like it's more traditional Assassin's Creed. We have a returning character from Valhalla, so we're extending that story and kind of keeping it canon. I'm expecting less emphasis on the RPG, and more emphasis on the stealth and your tactical side of it, which is, a lot of people love that Assassin's Creed, and it looked really good.
They got away from that with Valhalla a bit, and this seems to go right back.
Yeah, I think they fell away with it more like.
Well, it was a different style gameplay.
It was a different style gameplay, and the way they develop them with alternating studios, we were seeing it started kind of splitting off with Assassin's Creed Black Flag, and then it kind of went from there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting to see that come back in a good way. I'm personally, I like both Assassin's Creeds. I like both my flavors there. And I can live in a world where we get two different versions of Assassin's Creed. I think that's okay.
That is perfect.
After that, we had Dragon's Dogma 2.
Yes.
Dragon's Dogma 1 was a fan favorite. It was one of those cult hits. And then we had nothing forever and ever. And then finally Capcom's like, hey, guess what we're going to do? Dragon's Dogma 2. And they announced it last year, and everybody was cheering or confused. There was no in between. There was no people going, oh, I remember that game, but no. There was either people that remembered that game or people that were like, what is this game? And there's a second one coming. So, and I unfortunately fell into the second a bit. I had heard the name of the game before, but it never meant anything to me. I couldn't tell you what type it is, and it is a Japanese RPG. It looks to be an action based RPG.
Okay. Yeah.
And it has some very kind of Game of Thrones aspects to it. Kind of feel
Okay.
maybe some Witcher aspects to it. I felt.
I got very much kind of like this is not The Witcher.
Yeah. It kind of makes me want to figure out a way to maybe perhaps partake in Dragon's Dogma 1 somehow, or at least take a taste of it and see if it's something that's in my wheelhouse. So that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then Five Nights at Freddy's 2, Help Wanted to.
Another creepy horror survival.
Yeah, it's got the Five Nights at Freddy kind of slapstick, campy feel to it. You could very much see it evolving into a little bit more of a thing with their mode there. This is, I don't know how many different Five Nights at Freddy's there are, like Five Nights at Freddy's 2, but all the different expansions and stuff add up are kind of all their own experiences. So this is interesting. It kind of looks fun. I think it's something maybe we play and try out. It's got that kind of creepiness, but it also has the fun.
Play in the morning.
It also, and it has that kind of the very portally campy.
Yeah. No, it does look like a lot of fun and definitely something to get into.
Right, and we had just a little tiny taste of what that experience is like with this teaser. So, we'll have to take a look, or a better look at it.
Yeah.
And then there was a couple VR titles that were announced. Unfortunately, Half-Life Alyx was not one of them, because Half-Life will continue to evade most people.
That edge.
Right? Half-Life Alyx is on every VR thing, I think, except for PSVR 2. So, and it's just sitting there. It's probably ready to go, but for whatever reason, it's not. The deal hasn't been made, or the arrangements haven't been discussed. So we'll see. But anyways, we got Resident Evil 4 VR, which I know a lot of people absolutely love. Resident Evil 4, the remake that just came out. This is the VR mode for that, so it's
it's nice to see a game come on VR that'll bring the fans from that game over to the VR, and then the people in the VR universe already will be like excited to try main titled game.
Yeah, and I think it's a free expansion. So if you already own Resident Evil 4, don't quote me on this, but I believe if you already own Resident Evil 4, you just get this mode. So if you have a PS5 or PS4 VR headset, or PSVR 2 headset, Jesus Murphy, too many numbers here. A PSVR 2 headset sitting in your closet getting ready to play something scary. This is something that's out there for you, or going to be coming for you. And I think finally we can talk about Beat Saber, because that was so noticeably absent from the list of third-party games coming to the PSVR at launch.
Yeah.
It was on the PSVR 1, so why can't it be on the PSVR 2?
And it was such a silly favorite of everybody's.
Yeah, and it just seemed easy and logical to have it there at launch. And maybe the dev had some issues doing that, or what have you. I can't speak to the situation. But finally it's here. It's here now. And there's a Queen expansion along with it. They did Don't Stop Me Now during the trailer.
Okay.
So fans of Queen and that can enjoy that. So I'm excited for them.
There you go.
What was your favorite thing of that show?
On the PlayStation?
Yeah, from the PlayStation show.
I'm really looking forward to playing through the Plucky Squire. I think that'll be fun.
Yeah, when I saw that, I was like, that has Amanda written all over it, and it kind of looks fun. I kind of got a couple things there that I'm really most excited about, but I think Metal Gear Solid 3.
Oh,
the remake.
I am definitely looking forward to, but I'm going to do the whole. I'm going to start at 1, and I'm looking forward to playing through that for the first time, so I'm really looking forward to that. Well,
luckily for you, the Master Collection does come out in 2023. We don't have a date on the remake. I'm assuming it's been rumored for a while now, and we finally figured out what game it was a few months ago, that the insiders started saying, hey, no, it's Metal Gear Solid 3.
Yeah.
And that, so I think maybe that might be ready for next year. It might be a holiday 2024 game. We'll see. But the Master Collection, which has 1, 2, and 3 in it, is coming out this year. So we'll be able to finally play that on a modern system. We'll boot that up.
Yeah, and even like Helldivers gave me such a fun vibe too, that it's like I didn't play the first one, but I'm definitely looking forward to trying a bunch of these games and getting my toes in the water for different genres for me too. So
Yep, and Teardown.
Yes, Teardown looks like a lot of fun.
That had Warren Game written all over it when I saw that,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, I'm a big fan of Sims. I'm a big fan of not these Sims, of Sim games,
Yeah.
right? And I'm a big fan of blowing things up. So this kind of marries two of those things together in a fun way, and it seems exciting. So yeah, excited for that. Moving on to more news related stuff. We've got Microsoft has finally filed a formal appeal against the CMA, and it has to do with the CMA's decision to block Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard King. Acquisition, Activision, right? Acquisition of ABK. Now I know why all the news outlets just call it ABK. So originally the United Kingdom's Competition Markets Authority, which is the CMA, they blocked the deal because based off of fears of what could happen to the cloud gaming market, is what they said. And I think those are really weird reasons to block the acquisition of ABK, because what could happen in 10 years' time isn't really a problem for today. That's why we come up with remedies and solutions and legislation and things like that. We go, hey, you know what? This is how these businesses need to be run. You can't lock content behind paywalls or whatever it is. And also the other issue with that I find is Activision's games aren't on the cloud anywhere right now. Zero. You can't play Activision games on the cloud. And Microsoft is out here saying, hey, if we buy this, and they're signing legally binding deals, but if this acquisition goes through, we're going to put this game or all these games on your service competitor. And they're going around to all these competitors and signing all these deals saying, hey, it's going to be on your cloud gaming service. So the CMA is saying this game or this deal is no good because it's no good for cloud gaming because it could hurt it. But meanwhile, nothing of ABK is available on cloud gaming. This would only grow cloud gaming.
So you think they have a very good stance with this appeal?
Like, to be fair, I'm an idiot and I figured out that this is a problem to me.
Yeah.
I see this glaring right there on this thing. It was like, well, how do they figure this? How do they figure that this is bad because of ABK? If there's an issue with cloud gaming and Microsoft, it's bad with or without ABK because ABK has no bearing on that. And then the other part of it is that they came up with this bonkers number of amount of people that subscribe to cloud gaming, and it took a little bit of detective work, as in checking numbers twice, but they used these numbers from Xbox Game Pass Ultimate.
Okay.
So they said everybody that subscribes to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate is a cloud gaming user. And to be honest, you could potentially be a cloud gaming user because it's bundled in. But that doesn't mean we are.
That's true.
Right? By that same logic, Amazon is the biggest player in cloud gaming because if you have a Prime membership, you have access to Luna. And
yeah, who doesn't have an Amazon Prime membership?
Like, we have 2 Amazon Prime memberships in this house.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? We don't have 2 Xbox subscriptions in this house. So, your numbers are skewed quite a bit in the favor. And then when they calculate things the other way, when they're saying how it could impact Sony, the numbers seem to always be in Sony's favor. And, there could be some detective work as to why that is or what have you. But they're looking very unfavorable to Microsoft right now. And I think Microsoft has a very good case because I just pointed out 2 things. We've already verified as a layman, as a guy that, does not work in law or anything to do with that for a living. So, Microsoft and their lawyers that they pay way more money than I've ever seen in my life to come up with these arguments, they probably have much better arguments, right? So, and the other thing that was interesting too is it was revealed that the CMA would not consider any remedies from Microsoft. So Microsoft said, hey, what if we did this? What if we did this solution and not put these games on this service? Or we did put all these games on this other service or whatever. They were spitballing everything back and forth, and the CMA was like, no, not happening.
Not willing to work with them.
And it's like a kid that, well, you can't have that chocolate bar, but we have this chocolate bar, and the kid goes, no, I don't want it.
Yeah.
Right? And it's kind of the CMA saying, it's not good enough for me, right? So what do you think? Do you think this appeal works?
I think it should.
I think it should too. Whether it does or not, I think.
Yeah, I think it should work.
I should say, from my understanding of it, there is some precedent to the court system in the UK overturning acquisitions or acquisition refusals or blocks by the CMA. They have done that a couple times before. The CMA being a very young organization because as a result of Brexit, when they left the EU, it was the EU Market Authority that originally had authority over the UK. So now the CMA's been created and
To fill the void.
to fill that void, and I'm not 100% sure if they know what they're doing there yet. The EU has approved this with some remedy, very little remedy, but it was remedy that Microsoft had already proposed, which was, hey, what if we sign this deal with all these other people? And they were signing deals with every single cloud gaming service from NVIDIA, the GeForce Now system, everybody. I think the only one missing is Amazon, and my understanding is they're under a negotiation with Amazon because Microsoft provides a lot of back-end components to Amazon.
So if this appeal does get blocked then for Microsoft, do you think they'll reconsider the UK market?
I think they have to. The UK market, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I believe the UK market is worth something like $800 million a year to Microsoft as far as revenue. This deal is worth $69 billion. Call of Duty is worth more than $800 million a year.
Yeah.
And I think you take that and you lose the $800 million and you figure out what other way you can go about it. Now, I don't know if they have to completely divest any interest in the UK or to make that happen, or whether they can do a modified version of their cloud gaming services where these things don't appear on it. So to give other companies the advantage, I don't know what they would have to do.
They've got to be willing to work somewhere because Microsoft's not going to just say okay and back away. And if nobody's willing to come to the table to talk to them, like what are they going to do?
Right. They're spending almost $70 billion. It's $68.7 billion to buy Activision. It's a $3 billion penalty to cancel the deal. Right. So right off the hop, $3 billion is more money than $800 million.
Yeah.
So I would throw the $800 million at the door and keep the $3 billion in my pocket. So
we'll have to see what happens with this appeal then.
We'll have to see,
Microsoft goes.
And I think whatever way the judges seem to be leaning on this appeal, which is going to be a process, might dictate a little bit what the American FTC has to say about it. Because as of now, that's got to go to court to get stopped. In the UK, the deal has to be approved for it to go through. In the US, the FTC has to sue to block the deal.
Okay.
Right, which is what they've done. But I don't think that gets to trial. We'll see that, that's slated for later this year. I don't think that's actually going to go to trial. That's about as boring video game news as I really want to talk about.
Back to Sony, the president of Sony had some interesting news.
Yeah, he was talking about how, and this is Sony proper, not just PlayStation, but Sony proper. They were talking about how they are looking for more areas of growth, including mergers and acquisitions. And of course, this immediately fueled everybody wanting to say Sony's Square Enix. Right, they buy Square Enix.
Yep.
Right. I'm old enough to remember when Square Enix was just Square and then Enix. And then they merged, and I was trying to lobby all the people to say, no, it's Squeenix. It's not Square Enix, it's now Squeenix.
And you failed in that lobby, did you?
I think it made one issue of official PlayStation magazine before I never saw it again. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But do you think they buy it? Maybe you can
spark it now. To be honest, I don't know. When PlayStation was spending all that money before, and everybody was 100% that they had Square Enix in the bag, like they thought that was a done deal, and then so I don't know, like if they were at talks at that point, and maybe we do see them finally shore something up, or if it has just been something that somebody has said that we've all latched onto, and Sony's just going, why do we buy them when they already kind of make for us exclusively type
right
thing?
That's kind of where my brain was with it. Now I know Square Enix, they shut off all their Western studios. Embracer bought Crystal Dynamics and Square Enix Montreal and Eidos and all that. And I believe I can't remember what the dollar value was for it. It seemed really low. It seemed like $300 million or something like Square Enix shut off these studios. They're saying, oh, Guardians of the Galaxy and the Avengers, they didn't work. They're completely ignoring Deus Ex and Tomb Raider and all the wonderful things these places have made. An incredible talent out of those studios, and they're rather local to us, so I kind of like to see them succeed. But anyways, they shut off all those studios, and they're like, we're not doing that again. And then the next game they release, or next major game they release, is Forspoken for the PS5, which just went right. It dropped like a hot turd, and and I don't know if Square Enix is really viable in that sense. So, like, obviously everything's viable to a point, but you're looking at what the leadership's done, and by the leadership I mean the president of the company is still all about NFTs. um it's May of 2023 and you're talking about NFTs still. It's a little worrying. And they're like, hey, you know what was a cool game a couple of years ago? Splatoon. So we're going to make a clone on it. And the decisions kind of being made at Square Enix always seem to baffle me. They greenlight games like Balan Wonderworld, and they axe games like at a studios like Forspoken could have been a really good game, I think, if they gave them a bit of development.
We all thought it was going to be a much better game than it ended up being.
It came out obviously before we started our thing, but I played the demo and I felt the word I used was anemic. It needed fattening up a little bit. It needed it felt like it was a little thin in certain areas. In other areas, it was really annoying that the bracelet doesn't shut up, right? And it had that campy Joss Whedon kind of dialogue, which I know that was probably written when that was in, but let's try not to make our games with aged things, right? Or with things that can age, potentially, right? Just keep it traditional and normal. And I'm with you. PlayStation's getting all they want out of Square Enix.
Yeah, so why spend the money if they've got money to go find some raw talent maybe that we haven't heard of, go surprise us with something.
Right, like Final Fantasy 16, which we'll talk about a bit in a recap here. But Final Fantasy 16 is exclusive to PlayStation. It's coming to PC later, but they said they're having issues getting it optimized on PC because of, I believe, the game's reliance on SSDs. Probably amongst other things. You're making it for a PlayStation 5. You have one video card to make it for. You have one. Everything's just this kind of very narrow band.
Yeah.
And then you go turn around and make it for a PC that you can have all these different things and drivers and all these other stuff. It just messes it all up a little bit, right? So they'll probably, when it comes out, I think they said it was going to be 6 months or something delayed. It might be even later than that by now. But when it does come out for it, it might just be a different set of optimizations for it. It might be a little bit more stricter. Anyways, but they're getting what they want out of them. Yeah. Right? Final Fantasy 16 is an exclusive. A lot of games are coming exclusive or don't get developed for Xbox. Right? And I think that's the important thing. I don't think Sony cares if Square Enix makes a game for Nintendo. Probably don't care. They just don't want it going to Xbox. They don't want Xbox to get that JRPG experience, the Japanese RPG experience. They don't want Xbox to have a foothold there. Yeah.
I say unless there's some form of a control issue, which we've never heard of, between Sony and Square Enix and getting what they want, that why would they bother at this stage?
Yeah, right now they're getting what they want. Mm-hmm. If Square Enix winds up maybe in financial trouble where they are at the point of having to divest or something, I think then Sony comes in and goes, okay, we're going to buy you so we get what we need out of you. Mm-hmm. But until then, if they're staying afloat, this is when you go around and you capture all the studios that you've been working with as partners over the years, right? Your Housemarques, your Insomniacs, and things like that. You get them and you acquire them. Yeah. And, like they bought Insomniac for, I think it was $250 million. And look at the profit that studio's made for them with Ratchet and even the Resistance Fall of Man back on the PS3. Yeah. Right? And now Spider-Man and all that. Like the studio's just churning out amazing stuff. Mm-hmm. They have all sorts of relationships across all sorts of different studios that do certain things for them. Like Nixies they bought last year. All Nixies ever did for them was PC ports. And then they went and bought them because they were like, hey, you guys have done this for us long enough. It's time to get you. Yeah. Right? So now we're not, the money's not leaving the company.
We just want full control, own you, put you in the...
And it allows, bringing Nixies on board, it allows them to cross-develop these games from the beginning. So it's no longer, okay, here's God of War and it's finished and it's done. Here you go, Nixies, you can develop it for the PC. It is, we're building this together at the same time.
Yeah, it can be released much
right?
quicker that way.
And then you shorten that window up. I know they still want that window, especially for those first party tentpole games.
Yeah.
They want that window of that 6 months at least, where everybody's buying it on the PS5 because that's where they get the most profit, and then they ship it off to other platforms, PC. So, yeah, I think it's going to be somebody else if they buy it. And again, this was the Sony president, not Jim Ryan talking. So we don't necessarily see them, I think, buy it. It could be, Sony maybe buys a chip manufacturer or another thing that's part of the pipeline.
More hardware than design.
Yeah, and it's more of the pipeline of other things that they build, the cameras and the microphones and the headsets and the that stuff, right? Gets something into there. But gaming, I think
maybe they'll work on a handheld for them.
maybe they will. Maybe they'll finally get that what was it? Sony Vaio. Yep. We'll get a Sony Vaio handheld PlayStation portable thing. All right, so a little bit more from Sony. The PSVR 2 has sold slightly better, 8% better than the PSVR 1 in its first 6 weeks. So it's a small window. It's basically the launch window.
Does that mean much yet, or
it means about 600,000 units globally. I'm not, that 8% more is a little bit more. That's a lot more than what I thought it was going to sell based off landed PS5 rate. But we know PS5 was PSVR 2 was expected to sell about 2 million units in its first year, and we're at 600,000. 6 weeks into its launch, or this data's from 6 weeks into its launch. Maybe we get a holiday push, but without that Half-Life Alyx, I think everybody that's wanted one got one. Right? You need that draw. You need that thing.
It needs to be supported more software-wise. It needs to have more games, and you need to have more reason to go buy one. Because right now, there's really, the draw is not there for the average gamer who does not really care about the virtual reality side to really be like, oh, hey, I actually want to go try that. Like, there's really nothing that's eye-catching right now to draw you across that line.
It has that Horizon Call of the Wilds. Or
yes.
Call of the Mountains. Call of the Wilds is a different game. Horizon Call of the Mountains game on it, which I think it looks really good.
It does look pretty,
It kind of looks fun. But it's not enough for me to go, hey, I'm going to spend $600 on this unit and then go, buy this game for it too. Right? So you need maybe 2 or 3 of those things in order to be like, okay, it's time to pull the trigger. Otherwise, why aren't you just using a Meta Quest or something like that if you want that VR experience? So does this finally make it more mainstream, or is this console or this platform for VR going to be more mainstream now?
If we keep seeing more support like the Resident Evil and more main games coming to VR, if we keep hearing maybe a consistent announcement of games, I think we see it more mainstream. If we keep having these lull between the A titles, or heck, even some of the better B titles, if there's still this lull in between them, they're never going to pick up that audience to make it mainstream.
Yeah, I agree. I think they need to have a big push for it. And they've done a big push with it. They just didn't have the names associated. But I think they need IP for it. Overwatch 2 has canceled its player versus environment PvE hero mode, which was supposed to ship with the game, and then it got delayed, so they shipped the game without it.
Yeah.
And now it's just canceled because it got bigger than what they expected.
Yeah.
I'm not an Overwatch player, but
do you agree on them being able to cancel something that was pre-promised?
Like, to a point, I think there's justification to cancel something that's gotten unwieldy, but it needs to be replaced by something. This is a paid-for game. It's not a free-to-play game. Yeah. So people went out and bought that game on the promise that it was going to deliver this. Now, PvE might not be the thing that they bought it for.
No, but we're talking kind of more broad spectrum too. Like, should developers have to kind of more stand to what they say?
And I think the big answer to that is yes. Yeah. Right? Yes, asterisks. Right? Games like, look at Halo Infinite. Right? Halo Infinite was supposed to have that co-op campaign, and they eventually shipped a kind of a co-op campaign, but it's online only. It doesn't use split screen.
No, which is a big... The couch co-op was a main thing for Halo, and people were not happy when they didn't have it in 5, and then promised it and then not delivered made like a lot of people unhappy again.
right? And then, to me, it was a little different because it was a Game Pass game, right? I was like, well, no, okay, what are you going to do?
Yeah, you're
Get
getting
your money back, right? It is what it is. But with Overwatch 2, people are spending real tangible money on that, and then they're not getting one of the modes. It needs to be replaced by another mode or something.
I agree.
So there needs to be an update down the road that I think is substantial for Overwatch 2 for Blizzard to
Yeah, I agree with canceling it if they just feel that it is not going to add to the game in the way that they want it to. Like, obviously, they're not going to push something out that they feel would be subpar in any way. But I agree with you where they need to find something then to kind of fill that hole, because there are people who may have really been looking forward to it, or there are people going, okay, well, right, there needs to be just that little bit more to the game.
Right. And, it kind of makes me think of back before we had the internet updating our games all the time. Shigeru Miyamoto from Nintendo said, a bad game shipped is never good, but a bad game delayed could be good. There's potential for that, and I think there's a lot of truth to that. Delaying a mode makes sense if it's going to be good, but maybe we should have a good idea of whether it's going to be good before you make that decision, right? And I think this kind of falls down to Blizzard direction, right? The leadership direction at the studio. And you have a game director in charge of these things, and they need to go, this is what the mode is, this is what we're doing, and this is what's included in it. And you obviously are going to get developers go, hey, I have this cool game mechanic that might be interesting to it, right? So you're going to get things like that happening, but then you got to know when to stop putting things in the pot, or else your stew's going to be nuts, right? So you just got to stop, and that's the game director's job to do that, and I believe it failed at this point in time. So
sorry to the Overwatch 2.
Yeah, if you're a big Overwatch 2 player, I checked in on Overwatch 1. It's not my thing, but if you're a big Overwatch 2 player and you were really looking forward to that, that really sucks. That really hurts. And it's a lot different from the recent Apex Legends single player campaign that was going to incorporate a little bit of Titanfall into it. That got canceled, but it was never really announced. It was never really confirmed.
It was a rumored, toyed idea.
Yeah. It was. We knew what they were working on. They said as much of what they were working on, but it was never like, "Hey, we got your money. We got your pre-orders on this." Respawn was just like, it didn't work out in the way it goes.
Yeah.
Right. I don't see how it fit into what they're trying to make Apex Legends be. So it made sense to go away, even as much as I was excited to play something Titanfall style again. So, and one last kind of big piece of news here is the Jeff Keighley Summer Game Fest, which will be on June 8th at 3 p.m. Eastern. And it's kind of his E3 replacement.
It's getting bigger year by year.
It's getting bigger year by year. It will run approximately 2 hours. And this is according to Keighley. It will be wall-to-wall video game news, and he promises 3 to 4 things that are going to be big to the audience, right? So basically, any focus group, you can pick them. 3 or 4 things are going to excite you.
Yeah, we're holding him to that.
Yeah, we're going to hold him to it. We live about an hour away from his parents, so we could go make that right. The live in-person component of Summer Game Fest, which is the media side of E3, the business side of E3, it's taking place in LA at the exact same time. It'll be slightly different. It'll be larger than last year, and devs are getting more opportunity to speak about what they're talking to the whole audience, which I think is really cool.
And now, is that open to the public event, or is that a journalist only?
No. This is, you got to have credentials to get in. So whether you're a journalist or part of the game industry in some way, or you could be a retailer, maybe. Okay. I'm sure GameStop is going to have some people there. Maybe Best Buy, things like that. Walmart, right? They might have some people there just so they're aware of what's coming. Okay. Right, and that's how they form relationships with these, especially when you have. You see it a lot on Twitter, especially. You have the media relations person from Walmart Gaming, for example, and they will tweet something about a game that is being announced the next day, and they know it's being announced the next day, but they'll tweet a clue or something, right? And they'll do those little things because they're all working together, and that's how these relationships get formed. Sometimes Walmart Gaming just accidentally tweets the entire E3 schedule out, and then we find out about Rage 2, before it gets even announced. That's only happened a couple times though. So
Well, sometimes it's nice to give the developers the opportunity to speak on a more direct and specific level. When
yeah,
you open it up to the public, there's a lot of fanfare involved to keep to keep people happy, entertained, and stuff
right.
like that. When you're speaking to your journalists or people within your industry, you can be very specific and very detail oriented on like how you're delivering your information to people.
Exactly, and you know E3 traditionally was close to the public, and then at one point in time they started opening it up to the media or to the public a bit more. They were selling tickets for it. It was the Booth Babe era, and that whole thing was all going on, and it was very much Comic Con but for games and games only. But it still had this business component, and the business component is extremely important for the
Yeah.
people that do it, for the journalists and for these media relations people and the purchasers of video games for these big retailers. And they needed to get in there and ask these questions, ask the developers these things for their thoughts on these things. And they weren't able to really get access to them because they're too busy manning the booth, talking about their new game and how amazing it is. And getting the public hyped up.
Which, and there's nothing wrong with that, but maybe two separate, you know?
Two separate things. I think maybe if you did, our auto show is a little different like that. In Toronto, the auto show was open for the first 3 days, which are weekdays. So it's open Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to the media, and the media come and they get to talk to all the vendors and all the car manufacturers about the cars, get the pictures, get all that stuff.
Okay.
And then on Friday it opens up to the public, and it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday for the public, and then it goes to the next week. So something like that for whether it's Summer Game Fest or E3 2.0 or 3.0 at this point, would make sense. But I really like having, it would make sense, I think, in the sense that it would be a fun event. But from a business standpoint, I don't see the point of why me as a studio, if I'm a video game studio, why would I go through the expense to basically run an arcade for someone?
Yeah.
I'm paying to have a booth at this event, and I'm running an arcade.
Yeah.
It's kind of exaggerated with that. I think the best thing these places can do is if they want to show off the game to the public, come up with a nice vertical slice demo, load it up onto Xbox or PlayStation or whatever as a free demo, and then we can play it and see what we think about it, form our own thoughts. But demos take time away from game development, and I'd rather than polish a game and make it good than come up with a needless demo.
Well, it's nice to see that we have something right now that is kind of taken in that step.
Yeah, and I think Keeley's the man to do it. I think he's got a good focus on what he kind of wants as an event. The people that I've heard that were there last year said it was a very kind of quaint, almost romantic setting. Like it was very, not romantic, intimate was the word I was going for. Right? It was very quaint and intimate. You could talk one-on-one with the devs for a longer period of time. And when you were booking your slots, things weren't near as crazy for the journalists to get interviews and things like that. So, and you could spend a lot of time playing the game.
We'll look forward to the news out of that.
Right? I do very much look forward to the news at a Summer Game Fest. It's Jeff Keighley events always have that little bit of a flavor to them. Yeah. He has a style of doing it, whether it's the Game Awards, Summer Game Fest, Opening Night Live at Gamescom. He did do E3 back when it was good. So there's quite a few things that he's very good at doing. And I think his connections and his ability to tie this together is very good. And there's an important thing that he's doing here as well. We have, Nintendo figured it out a long time ago. Sony's figured it out quite a while ago. You don't need to be part of these events. You don't need to be part of E3 to get that audience anymore because the audience is all online. We all have YouTube, right? That's how we're all watching these things. But you can disappear very easily on YouTube. I know that very well, right? You just disappear. You're lost in the algorithm. And smaller studios disappear in the algorithm, and smaller publishers obviously disappear in that algorithm. So getting these smaller publishers, right, and grouping them all together and putting them in as part of Summer Game Fest, I think that makes them part of a bigger pie, and then it's a lot harder to lose track of that slice of pie when you're looking for it. Very important for I think these businesses to get into that on that side of it, and again, it exposes them to journalists, right, and then journalists write the story or talk about it on their podcast or on their show, and then it makes all the world a difference. Yeah. So I think that's very good. Just before we got into that, I kind of did want to recap a little bit about the third-party stuff that happened out of the PlayStation Showcase,
Yes, yeah.
and kind of where our predictions were on that. Um, I said Final Fantasy 16 was going to be coming, and obviously it was there. Like it comes out in like a week and a half,
Mm-hmm.
so it's going to be there, right? It showed off a very good story trailer, kind of detailed what to expect narratively from the game.
Yeah.
Um, it was very exciting. I've liked Final Fantasy. I've been Final Fantasy adjacent for quite some time. I've never dove head deep into the series and had to binge it.
Yeah.
Um, I kind of fell off a little bit after Final Fantasy VII because that was a lot of game for me to intake. And then I've revisited it a couple times since, and I've had fun. But this being an action RPG and not turn based tickles my fancy really quick, so it gets me going in that aspect. Had very Devil May Cry, God of War kind of combat to it, so very fast paced, kind of fun stuff. Um, so we saw that. We talked about Foam Stars already.
Mm-hmm.
We Street Fighter 6 was there,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they did a little bit of a trailer for that. That again, that was kind of a no brainer. It comes out in a few weeks. Capcom and Sony have a great relationship. It's going to be there. Exoprimal surprised me it wasn't there, because Exoprimal is supposed to come out in like a week and a half, 2 weeks.
Yeah, we haven't heard anything.
We haven't heard anything from them about that. Exoprimal is the game that should be called Dino Crisis, but it isn't. For whatever reason, because it looks very much like a Dino Crisis game.
Yes.
When it was announced, I was like, "That's Dino Crisis, dinosaurs, red-headed girl, Dino Crisis. That's Dino Crisis recipe." And they're like, "No, it's Exoprimal." It's what? It's Exoprimal. Okay, it's Dino Crisis. But anyways, they weren't there, and I thought that was surprising because it's coming out very soon. They got a good relationship. It is a PlayStation game,
Mm-hmm.
right? Very much so a game that you would associate with PlayStation, and it wasn't there, and I'm not sure what to think of that. It surprised me quite a bit. Um, I said that there could possibly be a new Resident Evil, but I said more than likely Resident Evil content coming.
Yeah.
And we had the Resident
VR.
Evil 4 VR, which totally lines up. Death Stranding 2 was not there, which Death Stranding is a PlayStation IP. It is a PlayStation property. However, Hideo Kojima is the developer behind it, right? So Kojima Productions makes the game, and he came up with it. It's just Sony funded it, so Sony owns it. Really expected that to be there. Yeah. He was at the Game Awards with a good trailer for it that kind of filled it in.
Mm-hmm.
He loves making trailers. He loves entertaining us.
But
he wasn't there. And I'm wondering, does he show up at Summer Game Fest? He's probably going to be at another Keighley event this year.
Yep, he's probably got something.
He's got something. Whether he shows up at Summer Game Fest or Opening Night Live or the Game Awards this year, or Keighley's got that video game concert in a few weeks. Maybe there's something there. Maybe there's Death Stranding new music or something, right? But I was really kind of thinking that would be there. I thought Tekken 8 would likely make an appearance based off of its release window. But I was also, and I said this last time, I was also concerned that it might not be there because Street Fighter 6 is the kind of fighting game they want to focus on right now.
Yeah. And
I don't think Tekken, who's made by Bandai Namco, I don't think Tekken really wanted to get in that way. They want to do their own thing, and I think that'll show up at a Bandai Namco thing at Summer Game Fest. They do have a very good relationship with Summer Game Fest as well. So that being where Elden Ring was announced.
Yeah.
And then I thought Humanity would be there just because it's a game that's coming out. It's coming straight into the PlayStation Plus subscription package, I believe, at the extra tier. So it's going to be at no cost to those people. And I've really thought it'd be there because it comes out Friday, and it's not. It's so surprising, but it wasn't. Maybe there's just nothing they wanted to talk about with it. Maybe they didn't want to address the PlayStation Plus setup yet, because I think there's going to be some tweaks coming to that. So we didn't know.
And again, we may get another show out of them at a later date with some of this other content.
There could be more stuff coming. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic remake was, this was confirmed last year at their show they did last year. They did a trailer for it. I screamed, I jumped. I was like, finally. This was a big get for them, and it's not there. But I didn't think it would be there. The game is in trouble. The game was being developed at one studio, and I want to say Aspire, and Aspire was they did a vertical slice. They presented it to Disney, and it was no, 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 and no. And Embracer, who owns Aspire, pulled Aspire off the project and put Saber Interactive on the project. And I think it's just getting rebooted right from the get go. Now, this is nicely Old Republic remake, so the formula's there. You have the plot, you have the recipe, you have everything you need to do.
Yep.
You just need to build the systems for it. And I think that's what troubled Aspire. Aspire's never really done like a full fledged remake. They've done remasters before, and maybe that's where the issue was with it. Saber doesn't really have a pedigree of that either, but Saber has a pedigree of making their own games.
Yeah.
So let's just make your own game, make it look like this is perhaps what the marching orders are there. I have no doubt that it comes. I just don't know when. At this point, I think it's quite delayed. And then I said there is a very slight chance that Call of Duty Modern Warfare's Sledgehammer game that's coming out this year would be there. They said originally Call of Duty, or it was rumored originally Call of Duty would be skipping 2023. And then that was off the basis that we wouldn't be seeing a Treyarch or Sledgehammer released independent title this year. But it turns out that part of Call of Duty part of the Call of Duty studios have been making a story extension of Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and that's been done primarily by Sledgehammer Games. And that's supposed to be coming out this year. It's completely rumored, but it's also another Tom Henderson leak. Tom Henderson being very, very good access to this kind of stuff. What he said made sense to me that it's coming. I didn't think it was going to be at the show, but I didn't know what to expect because they have this marketing deal with Sony, right? So Sony has to market the Call of Duty game when it comes out, or before it comes out. There's the deals in place to do the show like we just watched, and do marketing related for it on Twitter and social medias and things like that. And usually what happens is Call of Duty does this in a tweet. They go, here's the new game. Check out the trailer for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. And then they release the trailer. And then they do like a multiplayer quick look, and they do a story quick look.
Call of Duty sells itself.
It does largely. And then Sony does an event, and then they take all these other assets, plot them together, and make a big coming this year. This is what's happening. And that works when Sony's events are after all this is done. Yeah. And usually we don't see anything out of Activision on the Call of Duty front until mid-June, right? Summer Game Fest is kind of coming up.
Yeah.
Right? So I was more expecting it to be launched there, but with or be announced there, but with Sony doing their show before this instead of after this, it was like, how does that work? Does that affect the marketing deal, or are they just going to do something else later that satisfies that agreement? So we'll have to see about that.
Yeah.
Other things that I kind of did think we were going to be there to some degree was like Ghost of Tsushima. I always say that name wrong. Ghost of Tsushima 2 has been somewhat kind of confirmed, right? It's been enough time, but I think maybe it's just a little too soon, given we were coming off the pandemic.
Yeah.
The work from home things were happening and stuff like that. So it's one of those things that it maybe should have been there. Maybe it's something that is ready to show, like there is a trailer for it or a teaser. I would honestly think you just have the PlayStation Studios logo up there. You have the Sucker Punch Studios logo up there, and then you just have a silhouette and the game title, and then boom, 2025 or whatever it is.
Yep.
And you don't even need to do a date. Just coming soon, and that would be enough to make everybody go right. And like we know they're making it, so maybe they don't need to do that kind of thing. I said that there is a slight chance about not Call of Duty. I just went the wrong way. Gran Turismo.
Yeah.
Having something there with Polyphony Digital, because we have this movie coming, and we have the game just came out. Well, they shipped an update right before the show for the game. There was some new stuff in it, but it's nothing major. And then they had another trailer again for the movie tied into the show. So we got another look at this trailer.
Yeah.
We got to see Orlando Zoom. We got to see this whole thing happen. It looks like a fun movie, surprisingly. Neil Blomkamp, who did, what was it, District 9?
Yeah.
And he did some of those Halo shorts, like the ODST commercial and things like that. He did some of that stuff. And he's got a really kind of cool eye for certain things, and I think this might be a fun thing to do. We got David Harbour, right? So it looks like a good entertaining movie, right? And I was kind of going, hey, why isn't this there?
Yeah.
Right? But you know, I think maybe when the movie comes out, there might be a content pack or
Probably.
something.
Oh yeah, they'll probably
Right?
launch something to go along with it, or maybe they'll just take the extra revenue from the movie and keep working on their next game.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that kind of sums it up. Other than that, Ben's studio didn't really have anything kind of surprised me.
Yeah.
It's time out of them, but they've gone through a couple of reworks internally since.
Yeah, they may not be ready.
They might not be ready. They might have had to completely scrap the project. Maybe one of their projects was one of these live service games.
That's true.
And Bungie said no way, or whatever it is. I don't fully understand how it works, but maybe there was something there that they wanted to show and it just wasn't ready yet. So those were basically all the predictions on there. So games, they're cool. What have you been playing?
Recently just mostly been doing the construction simulator.
Yeah, construction simulator. After my heart playing sim games.
I've been enjoying it. It's one of those you can just kind of turn it on, play. You don't have to grind. You don't have to think. You can just go. So I'd like to see a couple improvements on the game. It's not always the smoothest, especially when you do the multiplayer, when you get in there building with me.
Yeah.
We run into a couple issues.
Yeah, there's definitely some server jank.
Definitely the camera.
Yeah, the camera.
Please, the next one. Fix your camera. But yeah, no, the construction simulator's kind of been my peaceful playing, I guess. I've been in that mode lately, because before that, we were going through the Far Cry. And,
yeah, we were Far Cry heavy for a while,
and that was fun to play through that again.
Yeah, we like playing games together a lot, so we'll play, even if it's a horrible game, sometimes we'll play it together.
Yeah.
Because it's something that's fun to do. And Far Cry is awesome to play together.
Yeah.
Because the story matters a little less. The fact that it's repetitive and climbing towers or whatever you're doing is, that matters less. Because storming these bases and things like that together, that's what's fun, and you get to do that over and over again.
Yeah, but then you switched on me because the brand new Zelda game came out, so I had to find something that I could do on my own.
Which brings me to what I've been playing, Tears of the Kingdom. I have, at the beginning of this week, so the game's been out for just over a week.
Yeah.
At the beginning of this week, it came out on the 12th. At the beginning of this week, it would have been out for 1 week and 3 days when I checked this.
Yep.
I had 85 hours in on the game, and I have done not much but play it completely every day since.
Yeah.
So I am well into 100 hours into Tears of the Kingdom. Mm-hmm. I have accomplished not much in Tears of the Kingdom. I have done the Wind Temple. I found the Fire Temple and got scared of that because that was hot and I didn't have the resources to deal with all my weapons burning immediately and things like that. So that was great. I'm playing it and I'm wondering, why is the back of Link on fire? And I realize I'm inside of a volcano and he's got a wooden bow. So of course it's on fire, right? But then
makes sense.
As soon as I realized that, I hit the button to pull up the weapon wheel so I can get rid of that, or the weapon selection, so I can get rid of the wooden bow and put a metal one in, and it was gone. It poofed away. So I had to leave that, and I started just kind of poking around, and I started going after these geoglyphs, which are shapes in the grass, and they're all over the place. So I started going after them. And the only reason why I started going after them is I was just kind of flying through the mountains, like I did the Skyview Tower thing, and I was coming down from above, and I landed beside this really cool looking spot, and Impa was there, and she gave me a quest to go find all these geoglyphs. So I was like, okay, let's go do that. So I did that for a bit and found some spots. I need to go back to Breath of the Wild and see if they were there, because I'm like, I had no reason to go there in Breath of the Wild. I remember not going there in Breath of the Wild, but I had a reason to go here now, and I kind of want to see what was there in Breath of the Wild, right? See how much the world changed, that kind of stuff. I've done the Fire Temple. I've discovered the depths, so I've found a lot of the fact that there's a complete ground world in there. Pretty cool. I'm trying to do this as spoiler free as possible, so I don't talk about like the important things in the game, just more about the game mechanics, because I don't want to spoil it for everyone. It's only been out for, well, by the time this podcast is out, it's been out for 2 weeks, so don't want to spoil that. Right? Maybe in a year I'll be brave enough to spoil some of the stuff.
Do a whole big review.
But it's so fun building these gizmos, these gadgets, the Banjo-Kazooie nuts and bolts style stuff. Yeah. And then I build this thing, I'm all proud of it, and it works, and it does neat stuff. And then I'm flipping through Facebook, and I see somebody post a reel of them building, like, a cow washing machine or this cool automated drone that's just blasting cannons everywhere. And it's like, okay, so my little horse and buggy thing that I built...
You need to be more inventive.
Right? Like, geez.
At least the mechanics are there for you to
do all. And that's what I love about it, is because of the physics-based thing, I can go full Looney Tunes. I can make, I can drop a rock using the rewind onto a board that's being held up by another rock with me on the other end of it and launch myself to the moon or whatever, right? Like, you can do things like that in this game. And that's really cool, right? That's so fun. And I'm a huge Zelda fan and I've really enjoyed this game so much. And it's there. For some reason, Zelda. Here's one little minor spoiler. If you go to your village, Haitano village, where you lived, where you built your house in Breath of the Wild, your house is still there, but Zelda lived in it. So all your stuff ain't there. You can sleep there, but you don't have anywhere to hide your things or whatever, right? So your house is there, and there's a whole new house in another spot on the map that you can buy eventually after doing quests. It's like, thanks.
It would have been cool if you could keep your old house. You go back to it.
I chopped all that wood and spent thousands of rupees to get this house, and now I have to do that again. But yeah, it was, there's some kind of fun things there, really cool things to explore. The characters are as amazing as ever. The dialogue, I think, is much better. Graphically, a lot of people are saying it's the same. It's actually improved quite a bit. I've noticed a lot of the shaders and stuff are a lot more refined. They're definitely taking advantage of every single little bit that the Switch can give it.
Yeah.
It doesn't run rough. It runs smooth. I know it's probably targeting 20 or 30 frames a second if it's lucky, but it's still a very smooth game. It hasn't crashed on me. It's got minimal bugs. There's a couple glitches in it, which we were going to talk about as part of the news. I decided to move it over here. And, my tagline in the news part of it was, Nintendo is going to stop you from cheating in Zelda. It's basically what it is. They're coming for you. And that's because today, as this podcast is being recorded, they've announced, or they've released a patch, and that patch gets rid of the duplication glitch that was in the game. So if you do utilize that duplication glitch, don't update the game past the version that you already have. Just keep on playing it. Don't shut it down. Just keep playing that. Don't let it update. Get yourself a bunch of diamonds. Get yourself like 50 diamonds or whatever you need. Sell it and go. I did the duplication thing, one, to see that it worked, and then I did it another time to get myself, because I ran out of bombs and I was in a cave and I didn't want to have to go get more bombs. So I was like, I got one bomb, I'll just dupe like 10 bombs and get myself through the rest of this cave so I didn't have to go back and restart the whole thing. Right? So you can't buy bombs. They grow on flowers in the wall.
Yeah. So
like, what am I going to do? Right? I could have had better weapons, I guess, but they all burned in the volcano. So. But Zelda, good as ever, and like I say, by now I'm probably 120 hours into it.
Looking forward to the next 120.
Oh, for sure. For sure. It's already my most played game on my Switch, and I've had it for a week. I've had I got the new Zelda Switch. I got everything moved over to it, and it's such an experience sitting there playing it all together. It's so great. I really enjoy that. So I think that's about it for us.
That's it, enemy.
Anything you're looking forward to playing this week?
I am looking forward to playing Breath of the Wild, because I would like to see what all the Zelda hype is about.
We got my old Switch, and we got Breath of the Wild. I bought that physically, so you can play that wherever you want there. So I think that might be doable. That's
my next step.
am going to bury my face right into more more Tears of the Kingdom. Um, I think maybe I might deviate from that and check see what's new on any of the services. I've had this Fallout itch for a while that I need to scratch, so I might have to go back to a Fallout for even just a day or something to go lark around in there. It might be fun. I've missed the Capital Wasteland quite a bit, so I would like to go back. Actually, they're doing the game thing on Epic Games, the Epic Games Store Mega Sale, and part of that they're giving away really cool games every week. And this week's game is Fallout New Vegas Ultimate Edition. So go grab that, pick that up on the Epic Games Store on your PC. Even if you don't want to play it, like just grab it so you have it later, maybe. Right? You never know what might come up down the road. I know it's the Epic Games Store. But, yeah, you can make exceptions for free games. I'm sure most people do. Anything else you want to touch on? No? So we will be live again, recording this coming Friday. So that's a week from now. That's the first week of June next week, right?
Yes.
So will be exciting talking about that. This week, as far as news that I can see coming up, that case from Microsoft and CMA, I believe that's going to go through some preliminary hearings on Monday or Tuesday.
Okay.
So we might get a bit of a recap from that, but other than that, I really don't know of anything big that's going to be newsworthy. Off the tip of my tongue, I can't think of anything.
We'll just have a Zelda update then.
We'll have a Zelda update. I'm sure, as always, there will always be news happening. It's just, where is it coming from? I don't honestly know. It's not like we have a big event this week coming up. So we do have some games coming out and things like that. So there'll be a lot to talk about next week for sure. Alrighty. So with that in mind, thank you very much for joining us. You can get more from us at Amarin Studios on Twitter, AMARREN. On Twitter, you can find us on Facebook at Amarin Studios there as well. And you can follow us on all these awesome podcast services. So we're on iHeartRadio, we're on Apple Podcast, Amazon Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, everywhere that you can get your pods. We are there. Okay. So if you want to join us there next week, we'll be live here on YouTube as well. So that'll be a fun and exciting experience for everybody. All right. Thank you. And you have yourselves an excellent weekend. Long weekend for any Americans listening to this as well. So thank you.